Welcome into episode 454 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. It's been a long off season already for the Bruins. They haven't played hockey in a couple of months now. We found the time to fill, and we've talked about different things. But now, Bridget and Scott, this week, a lot of questions are going to be answered because the end of this week we have the NHL draft, and then early next week is the start of free agency. So a lot of questions that we've had over the last few months, we're going to start to get answers for, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, and we're excited. We're going to be doing Wednesday. We're going to do our last mock draft to decide, see what we like, what's left at 7, and determine the other picks around that range as well. So we're going to be in full swing. And I don't know about you guys, but now that I've been doing the research completely differently for that episode now than we did the first time, because I was more into the prospects at that point, like getting up to speed on the prospects. Now I feel like and you guys probably do too, that we've looked at the prospects so much, and now I'm trying to figure out like organizational need and even like try to just track down some maybe plausible like rumors of what teams are interested in what guys, or even if they're interested in trading out of their spot. So I think it'll be pretty different actually from the first one that we did.
Yeah, and there's still chances for some surprises. The chances for trades. There's lots of noise. I saw a friend of the pod, Chris Peters, he put out his final mock draft on Flow Hockey and actually had Anton Frundell going 2 instead of Misa, which apparently there is some buzz about that the Sharks might legitimately be considering Frundell at 2. So again, like every time it looks like anything is settled, there's like whispers of it changing. So yeah, it's gonna be an exciting week, an interesting week, a noisy week, and we'll see how much of how much of that smoke actually turns into any fire, or if it is just the classic like everyone trying to misdirect and mislead in the days leading up to the draft.
I mean, even just before we started recording, I saw there's now there's buzz about, does Zegras get traded before draft night, or maybe involved in a deal that includes like a draft pick for this draft. So that smoke has started. We can maybe get to that, but we don't necessarily have to. Brian, did you want to start with our opening shifts? There was exciting news this morning, and I will say,
I was like, Bridget, why don't you start? I think yours is probably the biggest. And
yes, I don't know, Brian's is pretty big.
I would concede that you should probably start this one.
So once again, I told you guys the luck has turned around. So we were supposed to start recording at 11, and at 11:01 comes down an email from the Bruins that they have extended Mason Lohrei to a 2-year, which we expected, kind of more of a bridge deal. So a 2-year deal that has a annual cap hit of $3.2 million, and we'll get very much into where does that leave the cap? Was that a good deal? We put out a poll on Twitter as well to see, just test everyone's initial reaction. Do they think it was an overpay? Do they think it's a good deal? Is this kind of just what to expect now that the cap's going up for this upcoming season? Just going to see, some contracts be maybe $500,000 or $1 million more than what we expected, because this was slightly higher than what we had put him at in our bridge deal in our mock off-season episode. But 3.2 bridge deal, I feel like seems good to me. And so that was the big news of the morning. And one more piece that we know is in place, and we've been talking about, is Geeky next? They got Lohrei done. Both of these guys are RFAs. I think they wanted to get both of them done before they go into free agency, which obviously time is very much ticking down because, like you said, Brian, it's beginning of next week. So maybe we see Geeky get done too this week.
Yeah, the first two, when I tweeted this out, the first 2 responses. First reply was overpay. Second reply was great deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it goes back and forth too. Like I read through your comments, my comments, and it just like alternates. Yeah, we'll get more into it because I do want to go into some of the instant reaction from fans that we've got on Twitter, and just see what you guys think too of whether or not that's the right move.
Yeah, Brian, you want to do your open shift?
I do, yeah, and I also just want to. Yeah, I do have a comment on the Lohrei stuff as well afterwards. That just popped into my head. But yeah, so my opening shift has to do with the news of the summer. I mean, come on. Mason Lohrei comes and goes, but uniforms are forever. I mean, or not forever, but a significant amount of time, right? And
Usually for
yeah,
like
no,
20 to 25 year periods or so.
yeah,
Brian's
yeah.
happy the Centennials weren't forever.
Oh my God. Don't get me started on those things. But anyway, yeah, so obviously the Bruins have been speculated to have new uniforms this season and going forward, new home and aways, and we've discussed that it's the Kim Neely, Ray Bork era uniforms, which honestly, it's funny that people call it the Ray Bork, Cam Neely era because it really does predate them, and it goes back to the 70s as well, like the mid late 70s. Terry O'Reilly wore these uniforms too. But yeah, Bridget's showing some pictures on YouTube for those that are seeing. But essentially, the other night, last night actually, the Bruins tweeted out 6/25/25, which is a release date for their uniform unveilings, which we will see on Wednesday, because the draft is coming up. So the question was, are these jerseys going to be debuted on the draft stage or beforehand or afterhand? So those are going to be revealed on Wednesday. And then this morning they revealed officially their new logo, which is, as I said, it's the logo the Bruins had from the 70s, mid 70s through the mid 90s, essentially, with a bit of a tweaking. Simply, it just looks like it's more bold. The spokes are more bold, the B's more bold, and the circle's more bold. Maybe there's a slight modernization with the B, but it's very subtle if there is. And it looks like, so on the left, if you're watching on YouTube, it's the yellow B, the yellow circle, the yellow B, the black spokes, which is going to be on the black jersey. But the Bruins are now going to have two different primary logos now, just like they did in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. The white jerseys are going to have a black circle with the black B and then the yellow spokes. So anyway, from a fashion perspective, the Bruins will look amazing on the ice next year. From a talent perspective, that's the stuff we'll have to wait and see on.
Man, I've already run through like so many graphics in the first 7 minutes of this because Brian gets really excited about fashion jersey releases, and I know he was waiting for this one, and we did see that leak. Some Canadian broadcast leaked these images of like a production line of the jerseys getting made, and that had Brian excited from, I don't know, that was a few months ago, wasn't it? So he's, now that it's coming true and he's seeing that this week he's going to get to see them in real life, he's excited.
Well, it's also just like, yes, I mean, I've always been a huge sports uniform nerd, but in my opinion, I there's a very strong case to be made for the Bobby Orr Big Bad Bruins era uniforms. Those whites, those black uniforms were outstanding, amazing. Personally, I've always thought that what they wore from the mid 70s to the mid 90s, which are more commonly referred to as the Bork Neely era, has always been my personal favorite of the Boston Bruins uniforms they've ever worn. So the fact that they're going back to those, yeah,
I thought your favorite
I'm a fan.
I thought your favorite was the
Don't say it.
the,
Don't say it.
the white Centennials with the gold, the sparkle gold.
Honestly, the whites weren't even that as bad as the darks. The darks were just so dull. I thought I was watching a club college hockey team. It was just like, in any event, we're talking good fashion news today. Scott, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I'm excited. Love the logo. Love what these jerseys are going to look like. Obviously, as Bridget showed the leak of them, it's more or less the same jersey they wore for the Centennial game in December against Montreal. Obviously, with a little less special branding because those jerseys had a special logo on them, like up on the chest. But yeah, they're great jerseys. I think they are an upgrade over this most recent era. Although I always liked this most recent era too. So
The most recent era was an upgrade over the previous era, so I agree with you on that.
The 95 to 07 or whatever that was. Yeah, those weren't great. The ones that had the yellow like all the ways down the sleeve. But yeah, we can get more into that. My opening shift is about the draft, which we already touched on a little. But along the lines of, rumors continuing, popping up everywhere, I'm just increasingly coming to believe that the Bruins trading the number 7 pick, unless it's to trade up, would be a mistake. And that's not to say that they can't get a good player or that, like we mentioned Noah Dobson. Look, I like Noah Dobson. I just think the Bruins' single biggest need organizationally is a number 1 center. And you are not guaranteed to get that with the 7th pick. Absolutely. Like, not a guarantee at all, but you have a chance because there's going to be at least 1, maybe 2 or 3 centers available at 7 who have the potential to become that. And that is as good as the Bruins can hope for when it comes to finding that guy. Like, right now, I don't think you have anyone who has the potential to be that. And it's hard to find guys who either are already that or have the potential to become it. So you have a chance to draft someone who, if they hit their ceiling, could be your number 1 center of the future. And even if they don't, is probably a good second line center. I just think trading out of that, unless you're getting one of those guys, unless it's getting you that center, or moves you up in the draft to get it, I just think it'd be a mistake. Like, yeah, you can fill other holes. You can get better for next season, but I don't think that's what's best for the Bruins in the long run. I think it would be pretty short-sighted because, yeah, listen, look, you had Noah Dobson and maybe Pajot's part of it. Like, I don't know. Maybe that helps get you to the playoffs next year. Does it make you a Stanley Cup contender, though? I don't think so, because I still think you have that glaring hole down the middle of the ice. So that's kind of... you keep seeing like that the Bruins are listening on 7 and it might be available, and it just worries me. I hope it's more smoke than fire and they're not like actually trying to trade out of this spot.
I'm petrified. I said it.
I said nightmares this week about it.
I said it. I said it online the other day. I said I'm petrified of what the Bruins might do in response to those rumors that you're talking about, Scott. And I'll reserve judgment on a trade until it happens. I would just say it's more likely than not that if the Bruins trade number 7, I don't like the deal. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, and obviously the counter argument is that whoever they pick at number 7 overall this year, that they may not pan out, or they may not pan out for a couple of years or whatnot. But I'm only trading that pick if it's giving you a like bona fide NHL forward right now, and ideally a center or somebody who could play center, if given the opportunity. But I said it last week to you guys, and I'm going to say it again. Noah Dobson for 7. It's like even Matthew Barzal. It's like find the next Barzal. Like Barzal's, he's dealt with some injury issues, and he's creeping up on his late. He's in his late 20s. He's creeping up on 30. Like, just why? So you mean to tell me that what you want to do is you want to trade number 7 overall this year for somebody who you could have picked 10 years ago with your first round pick?
Was that not the 2015 draft, or what?
Yeah,
draft was it?
Yeah. It's
So
like
it would tie back in.
They could have drafted Barzal at 13, 14, 15 in 2015, and there's a possibility that they want to trade for him now. They want to attain him now at the expense of number 7. And I'm not even trying to shit on Barzal as a player or Dobson, but man, if they're gonna trade that pick, it just has to be for something that's just undisputedly like I don't know. I'm with you, Scott, and that's why I said I'm petrified of what they might do. And people respond to me and say, "Why are you petrified? what trades has Sweeney made to make you feel petrified of his hockey trades? His drafting is his issue, not his trades. I mean, okay, he's been better at trades and drafting. Sure, I'm not even arguing that. But it's what's at stake here. It's number 7. It's their first top 10 pick in a decade. So, or more than a decade. So,
I'll bring
tread
this
lightly.
up. I'll bring this up too because it's definitely relevant. You don't have to trade the 7th overall pick this year. You could make that pick and you have other first round assets in the next year's draft that you could move that Toronto pick that you traded for in the Brendan Carlo deal. You could trade your own, but they have other first round picks available to use in a trade if that is what they wanted to do. Maybe say, hey, we'll give you a first rounder, but we really need 7. We're planning on actually selecting there, and good news for them is when they did start to make some tough decisions and sell at the deadline, they did get some assets back that they might be able to use on a player like a center now. That doesn't mean that they have to get rid of number 7 this year.
The problem is that we're seeing headlines regarding number 7, and a headline about a future first round doesn't get as many clicks. So, I'm with you, Bridget, and I think that's a possibility. But what makes me nervous is seeing these articles about specifically number 7, and that's why I'm like, oh my God. So we'll find out.
Yeah, and it also comes back to like how patient are the Bruins willing to be? Because I've been saying from the moment that they sold at the deadline, like, best case scenario, this is a 2 to 3 year retool in my mind. And so the number 7 overall pick should line up with that. So to me, I'm like, that's not pushing it. To me, like that lines up with how long I think this process is going to take anyways. But do they think not only are they going to be like a playoff team next year, but that they can contend in like in short order, like in a year or two? Because I think that's kind of delusional, and I don't really see how they get there that quickly from where they finished last season. But I do wonder, like, is there pressure coming from ownership? Does Don Sweeney feel like he needs to be back in the playoffs next year and have a team that can get to the conference finals, 2 years from now? Like, because I think that then lends itself to, do you start to trade away from your future to make moves to get better now? And I just think that we've taught, like, yes, you can't waste Pastrnak and McAvoy's prime, but I think you have to accept like a couple year process here. Like, to me, that first thing I mentioned, where it's like we're just trying to get back as quickly as possible, that risks you doing what the Penguins did for the last 5-6 years, where they're we're going to trade for this veteran, we're going to sign this veteran. They're always trying to find, the right guys to add around Crosby and Malkin. And next thing you know, it's been 5 years and they haven't added the right thing, and they don't have their next core coming. And you're just looking at this roster going like, boy, that's a lot of guys in their 30s that aren't even close to competing for a cup. Whereas the other option is the Washington Capitals, who, again, still have work to do to be a true cup contender. We saw that this year. They, they were the top seed in the East, but come playoff time, was pretty clear they still have work to do to really compete for a cup. But they actually, in the end, got there quicker because they were willing to take a real step back and use draft picks, develop young players, give them the time to develop, and say, yeah, you know what? We're not going to be very good for 2 years, but we're going to have our next core pushing us forward when the time comes for them to be ready. And I think I think that's what the Bruins have to do. And I just wonder if they organizationally have the patience for it.
Yeah, and there was plenty of incentive to rush things along for Washington as well, because Ovechkin's not going to be there forever. So like they had probably even more reason than the Bruins do to be worried about that. Trying to maximize, but I also think they're a good comparison. For, if you want to look at a hopeful story, because when they took their first round draft pick, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago that they drafted Ryan Leonard?
2 years ago, yeah.
2 years ago, and they drafted him at 8. So we were talking about the range that the Bruins are drafting in. If the Bruins can get that caliber player at 7, which is right around where he went, that's a good news. Ryan Leonard is a great player, and obviously there's talks about different draft class strengths, and that one was strong, but we don't really know until we watch their first steps in the NHL how strong this draft class really is going to be. If you think that you can get that kind of player at 7, I mean, there's plenty of people in this area who know who Ryan Leonard is because he played for Boston College. And I know I heard right when he was going pro at the end of BC season, like, oh, I wish we had Ryan Leonard. I wish we had a player like that. You might be able to get someone that makes you feel that way in this draft at 7 to be excited for. And the college hockey development process isn't that long. It's not that long off that you're going to see this guy in the NHL more than likely. So, yeah, just putting that out there.
So, great points. Scott, when you mentioned the Penguins, the difference that I would say for the Bruins is they shouldn't, if they're trying to turn things around quick, right? They shouldn't be targeting veterans. They should be targeting players that are in their mid-20s that are still young enough to go forward. My question is, can they find a player of that ilk, to Bridget's point earlier, without giving up 7, right? Can you get the best of both worlds? Can you give up, a future first round pick that maybe isn't even yours? Maybe it's, Toronto's or Florida's, or maybe it is yours. Maybe the price of getting somebody that impactful is that it is a Bruins pick because the team thinks that might be a higher pick. That to me is the best of both worlds. If they could identify, are you able to get, just for an example, Marty Necas type player, if it's not number 7 overall? Will Colorado be willing to move on from Necas if it's not for number 7? The 26th first isn't really, we know you have 7 this year. We want, like, can they use future first round picks as a bargaining chip to get a true player now? That's the question. Because if you can draft 7 this year and utilize other future picks, to Bridget's point, to get an impactful player, who insert name there, right? You see them floating around in rumors as well as I do. To me, that's the question that I want to know, if they can do that. But it's obviously not as good of an asset, right?
Yeah, and I'm totally open to that. And, like, again, to use the Capitals example, like, part of what they did included that they had gotten a first round pick from actually it was from the Bruins trade, from the Orlov Hathaway trade, and then flipped that to Toronto to get Rasmus Sandin, like exactly the kind of player you're talking about. I think he was 23 or 24 when they traded for him, so it's still not even at his prime. And he comes in and ends up playing a top 4 role. Like, yeah, that makes total sense. Use it for someone in their mid-20s at the latest, who can be part of your core. But yeah, like, that was also a later first round pick. That was not their top 10 pick, which, as Bridget mentioned, they use on Ryan Leonard. So yeah, I'm totally on board with that. Like, if you want to trade a future first or couple second round picks or whatever, like, in the right trade, sure. I just think 7 overall is too valuable, and I think the chance of the Bruins, again, obviously, like, if they do trade it, we evaluate the trade if and when it happens, but I think the chances of them getting someone that I would feel good about with that pick is pretty slim.
So, well, we only have a few days to find out. We had talked about how on draft day, does this a deal happen minutes before the pick because they know, they do or don't have a guy there that they like in that range. But I think part of what you're saying as well, Scott, is that there are enough good players going to be available at 7 that even if one of their guys isn't there, there's still another guy that they like. it's not like that area is going to be devoid of good options for them, which is probably one of the reasons why, Scott, you feel like they really should not trade out of that.
Yeah, I mean, like at least one or two of go through the whole list of centers. Jake O'Brien, James Higgins, Caleb Denwye, Brady Martin, Roger McQueen. Like, basically a guarantee that like at least two of those guys are going to be on the board at 7. Maybe Porter Martone falls, and it's like Martone versus one of them or something. But like, yeah, I mean, I was just looking at, like I mentioned, just as one example, Chris Peters' mock. And he has McQueen jumping up and going 5, Jake O'Brien going 6. But it's like then that leaves the Bruins with the option of James Higgins, Brady Martin, or Porter Martone if they go wing. And it's like, yeah, any one of those guys I think would be exciting to add to the Bruins prospect pool. Now, I would go Higgins in that case. Chris has him taking Brady Martin. To me, Hagen's offensive upside at that point would just be really tough to pass on. But like, yeah, you're gonna have a choice of, in my mind, some really appealing prospects. Now, I guess it's possible that maybe the Bruins, wouldn't like who's left at that point, but I feel like they should. Like, I feel like they should be pretty high on at least one or two of these guys.
And I know we've talked about, and it's been mentioned that the risk of keeping a draft pick is that you never know if they pan out, and if they do, it's probably it could be 3-4 years down the line. In all reality, in my mind, I think whoever the Bruins draft at 7 overall this year, I think there's a damn good chance that they're making a team out of training camp in the 26-27 season, which is just a year from now. So,
or like if it's Hagen's even turning pro at the end of BC season.
Yeah, fair, exactly. So it really, there's this notion in my mind, at least, and others sometimes with draft picks that it's down the line. It's down. Well, down the line sometimes is 6 months to 24 months, or 6 to 12 months. Sometimes it's not. It doesn't have to be 2-3 years from now, right? Like wasting Pastrnak and Pastrnak and McAvoy's prime. It could be next year. It could be this year.
If it was Hagen's, it would probably be in March or April, like depending on when BC gets bumped in the playoffs for college hockey. And then we're not talking about really, I mean, that doesn't feel like anything to have to wait that, like, because he's already gone through his freshman season at BC, and he is going to, a lot of those players out of that caliber leave after their sophomore season. Some even leave after their freshman year. I don't think that's going to happen, but yeah, it's definitely within the realm of possibility. I'd be surprised. Scott, wouldn't you be surprised if he went for a junior year at BC? Like, I just don't even see that happening.
I'd be very surprised. I mean, I fully expect that James Higgins is going to dominate this year as a sophomore, and then be ready to turn pro at the end of the season. But yeah, it's like this is the difference between picking top 10 versus picking in the 20s, which is what we're used to seeing from the Bruins. Yeah, a pick in the 20s, usually those are longer term projects, like 3, 4, maybe even 5 years. Top 10 picks are not, or at least they shouldn't be, long term projects. Like, that guy should be ready in a year or two, like 3 at the absolute most.
So here's my burning question for you guys. With all this said, what would you give the probabilities right now of the Bruins trading 7 overall? Are you increasingly worried, Scott, as I am, that they are going to do it? Like, are you thinking that it's more like 50-50 now, whereas before maybe it was 90-10 in your mind that they were selecting it? Or has that changed for you at all? How are you feeling with the draft later this week?
It's still not even close to 50-50 for me. I would say it's like 85-15. They keep the pick and make it. I as of now, I still think it's a lot more smoke than fire. Like, yeah, fine. Like, they can listen to all the offers they want and even shop it around or whatever. At this moment, and like this could change in the next few days, but I would still be surprised if they actually trade away the pick.
Yeah. I mean, the smoke comes because it's not even untrue that they're taking calls on it. You would have to assume that that's just what managers do. So as a GM, Don Sweeney's conversations about this have probably happened. Maybe there's some insiders that found out about it and that's where the smoke comes from. But at the end of the day, it could have just been a very basic, hey, you got, is it available? Do you like anything? Like it maybe didn't go that far. So I also am with Scott. My gut feeling is that they're making this selection. I haven't heard anything credible or strong enough to believe like they're really chomping at the bit to move this pick right now. But you know how crazy and fast things change on draft day, though. Like we'll all be monitoring our phones and hearing all sorts of different things on draft night because that's when things really get frantic and when you really have a harder time figuring out if something's legit or just, I don't even want to say rumor. Sometimes things come really close to happening and don't. So that all is on the table for Friday.
Yeah, I said to somebody, I think over the summer, was asking me about the 7th overall pick and their chances of moving in. And back then, I think I said something similar to what Scott said, around 85-15. I was like, I think there's like an 85% chance they use the pick and 50% chance maybe they trade it if something comes across their desk. That is, too hard to pass up. But that was not like a Noah Dobson and JG Pajot scenario that I was envisioning. So, and another name just to mention quickly, you guys were talking about it before we started recording, but Elliot Friedman said to keep an eye on Trevor Zegras and that the Ducks are getting a lot of inquiries about him and potentially moving him. Not sure if that's a player that Boston would be in on or interested in, or if they should be or not. But he's just another example of many names that we hear throughout the offseason, which is just the territory. It's the nature of the business. It's an offseason. People are scratching and clawing for stories. And to Bridget's point earlier, it's not even fictitious. It's somebody hears something from somebody and it's worth writing about. So why not, right? But it's as Scott billed it, silly season, right? So that's just another name to add to silly season. And
well, yeah, Zegras is the name this morning, and it comes because Elliot Friedman tweeted out, "Keep an eye on Trevor Zegras," who has been a guy that's been linked to trade rumors before. I guess last year there was a push by the Canadians to acquire him on draft night that fell through. So he maybe is linked to them again. His contract is reasonable if you get the good Trevor Zegras. His contract is, I believe, at 5.75 a year. Yep, 5.75 a year in his last year of his current contract, but he's an RFA, so you'd have team control there when negotiating the next contract. But there's also questions around Trevor Zegras and his inconsistency, how he is as a teammate. Things like that have popped up. So is he a cultural fit for different teams? That's also part of the question. So he pops up. I don't know about you guys. If this were a few years ago, I would have told you, yeah, for the Bruins, go for it. But I just don't feel the same way about him anymore. I don't know about you guys. Like, to me, this feels like a risk and not an experiment that I think the Bruins are willing to participate in.
No, listen, I love my BU guys, but I would probably stay away from Trevor Zegras. Unless I'm getting him cheap. Like, if you're telling me I can get him
how about
for
the cost?
right, like if you're telling me I can get him for a 3rd round pick, then yeah, absolutely, take the chance. I don't think you are. I think the Ducks still value him. I think they certainly would value him in a trade and hold out for a legit offer, as they should, because he is still young and talented, even though he's battled injuries and his production, wasn't great when he did play last year. And he still has not really improved defensively. Like, there's all those questions, but there is also still the talent. So the Ducks would be right to hold out for a better return and not just give him away. If I'm the Bruins, I'm probably not. I don't think I would be the team to give them like a real return. If they want to give him away and you could get him cheap, then sure. But I don't think that's going to happen.
He's
Yeah.
24 years old. He was a 9th overall pick by the Ducks back in 2019. So he was once very highly thought of, and I have a hard time seeing him going for a third rounder. So I think that his name is out there and the Ducks are putting it out there, but there's a reason why he hasn't gotten moved yet, even though it seems like they've been considering it for at least a season, I think longer. And yeah, they're waiting for the right deal.
Just curious on your guys' opinion. What if it was for like the first round pick that the Bruins got from the Panthers, where it's a late first round pick and it's in a couple of years? Would that be too high of an ask as well in your mind, or are you looking at that more like a glorified second round pick?
I don't think I'd give up any first round pick for Zegras right now.
Okay.
Honestly, like a second, one of your seconds. Yeah, probably you could talk me into that. I'm just like, I'm so down on the player. I mean,
You don't like the player. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Like I mean, look, he had back-to-back 60-point seasons as a 20 and 21-year-old. And it's like, clearly there's something there. You don't do that by accident. But the 2 years since then, he's played a total of 88 games. So he's basically played 50% of the games the Ducks have played, and has 47 points in those 88 games. Like it's been a massive drop off. And it's possible that, if you buy the dip, like maybe it rewards you and you get 60 plus points and maybe even a 75 point guy. But I would just struggle to take that risk right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, by the way, if you were like to use your term, which maybe Scott's been in the stock market this morning or something investing, because buying the dip on Trevor Zegras would definitely not be trading a first round pick for him, right? Like that would be kind of a normal value for a guy that has more, I'll just use consistency, probably, than what you'd get for a first round pick for him. So maybe if you can get it lesser, but there might be no interest at all, even for a lower pick, if they just don't think that it's a match, because it really might not be a match at all in terms of fit for the organization.
Yeah, no, they're all fair points. I just raise it because Zegras possesses speed and skill that the Bruins don't necessarily have in spades at all, really, on their roster. So I just don't think the Bruins are in a situation where beggars can be choosers. And if the cost was right, and that does not mean 7 overall this year, and it's not even Boston's first round picks going forward. But like I said, if it was a team like Toronto or Florida that you think are going to be at the higher end of the league for the next couple of years, and their first round pick ends up being a lower first round pick that Boston has, can you convince me of a low first round pick in a couple of years for somebody with 70 plus point upside in the NHL that's still young, and you're talking about a glorified second round pick? It's just something worth talking about on a podcast. I find it interesting, but I don't see the fit though ultimately yet. But it's just fun to talk about.
Yeah, it depends what conversations they've had with people about his character. Like there's all sorts of fact finding that happens, and you talk to everyone that that has information about a certain player that if you're interested in them, especially when it's somebody like Trevor Zegras. So if you like what you heard or you don't like what you heard, that is huge in determining what you're planning on doing with that player. Now, it popped into my mind, like if he goes to the Canadiens, because like I mentioned, that was what he was connected to last year.
Play with Cole Caulfield, his best friend.
Yeah, that's not that's if you're the Bruins and you see him go to a divisional rival, that's tough too. If he turns it around and he's gets back to what his projection ultimately was, and he's playing with some of those younger, high skilled guys in the Canadiens organization, I don't know. That sounds like that could cause some problems.
Mm-hmm.
That would remain a smaller, slight Canadiens team. Kind of like the classic Canadians mold of our lifetime, at least.
Yeah.
They got Lane Hudson up there.
I think can be exciting. I don't think you ultimately win or go on deep runs with that kind of team, but
well, what about Slafkovsky?
Yeah, he's the outlier, and like it's funny because it's like that seemed like such a reach. Well, I won't say such a reach, but it was a less than ideal first overall pick just because that was a year where there wasn't a consensus number one guy. But he does actually like really legitimately fit a need for that team as a bigger kind of physical forward who can get inside.
They do have some, and maybe forward looking, Scott, like 5-10 years from now, sure, but as it stands right now, I think the Canadians have a little bit more sandpaper than maybe given credit. I mean, Josh Anderson, Arbor Jacki, Slafkovsky, as you said, Gallagher, Gouli, can play the body on defense. Like I do think they have some. I think Dvorak is still there. I mean, they got some guys that can play an honest game.
They have some. I guess my concern is more if like 5 of your 6 best players are all on the smaller side. Like, do you end up with? Can an identity be completely driven by like bottom 6 guys and your second and third pairing? Like, I think you need more of that near the top of your roster ultimately.
Fair enough.
This just became a very brief Montreal Canadiens podcast.
How about that? How about that? Okay, let's shift gears to Mason Lohrei's contract. Okay, so he signs a bridge deal. Make no mistake about it. It's a prove it deal. Okay, 2 years, $3.2 million. This contract to me, don't mistake my opinion. I believe that they signed him to this contract because they want him to be on the team for the next 2 years to prove himself and hopefully be a fixture in their long-term plans as well on a future contract. Is there any possibility in your minds that signing him to this deal could be an instrument in helping move him if he was potentially a trade possibility where now a team sees he's under contract and at a certain AAV? Could that help a team with a pending RFA to get him locked up and then have more of a sign and trade? I don't think that's happening at all. I think like 99.9% chance that's not happening. But could that theoretically help that cause? Because his name was kind of floated out there, at least among Bruins fans. Like maybe he's somebody that you could package this year with a future draft pick or something for something. I don't
know. Breaking news.
Oh,
I'll answer about Lohrei in a second. But since we were literally just talking about Trevor Zegras, we don't have to worry about the Bruins trading for him because according to Frank Saravalli, the Ducks and Flyers have agreed to a deal to send Trevor Zegras to Philly.
So, that was a rumor that there was
return not yet known, but
so that's big. That's making good on the Cutter Gauthier situation, probably.
Oh, that's risky for them. Don't you? I mean, that was a personality that didn't fit, obviously, and with Gauthier forcing a trade before he even stepped foot on the ice.
Yeah, I mean that was a totally different situation, though. That actually, you know what? Like Gauthier was kind of pulling like a Devers, where he was like acting, in my opinion, like he was acting like he was being disrespected when I don't really think he was. Like I think he was just upset that they didn't want to sign him when he wanted to sign. But I think they're totally different situations. I don't know. I think it makes sense for Philly. Like they clearly need more skill. They're not yet in win now mode, so they can probably afford to bring Zegras in, work with him, and hope he gets back to where he was and even exceeds that. Again, like let's wait to see what the return is. If you're telling me Philly's like giving up one of their first round picks, I'm probably going to be less excited about it for him. But
what if it was they as we know, the Flyers have 6 overall? Could you imagine?
No, but they also have they have 2 more first round picks this year too. So I would not be shocked if it's one of the later ones. I would be stunned if it's 6 overall. That would be a terrible trade.
What timing on that, huh? What timing on that? Yes, talking about him a minute later gets traded. Yeah, you're right.
It has been coming down while we're recording.
I I think Zegras also told Anaheim that he only wants to be traded to another team that wears orange. So there's that as well. That was in his
When
in his
it's your color,
contract.
you know,
Yeah.
when it's your color, you got to make it happen.
Yep.
That's so funny, though. I guess he's
yes.
not going to the Canadians. See, if we
No.
had known it slightly earlier.
Yeah. So Lohrei, like, yeah, I don't think they're trading him. To me, you're more likely to trade an RFA if you can't get a deal done or it's turning into a tense negotiation. And obviously, in the end, this ended up being a relatively easy negotiation. It gets done before July 1. You don't have to worry about him sitting out there. You don't have to go take care of all your UFA business first. There's no filing for arbitration. Like this got done early. You know, this is early by NHL standards. So it's a little 3.2 million is a little higher than I would have wanted for Lohrei, but Brian, you mentioned it. Like AFP Analytics had him just over 3 million on a 2-year deal. So like it's hard to me, it's hard to argue that it's like really an overpay. Maybe just a slight one, but to get a deal done without any animosity for a young player that you hope is going to be part of your long-term future, I think it's pretty good business. You know, like, yeah, now you have 2 more years to evaluate what he's ultimately going to be. Lohrei has 2 more years to prove himself before he gets what he's obviously going to hope that next contract is the big payday of his career. He's going to go out and do the work to make sure that happens. But to me, it makes a lot of sense for both sides.
And if you're looking at the totality of this deal, his second year of this contract, the cap will be around 104 million, right? So that I think that's where around it's projected to be next year, and then 113 the following year.
Yeah.
So I mean, as it pertains to Mason Lohrei, he has the 2025-26 season at 3.2 average, annual average cap hit, and the cap is I think 95, right? And then next year it's 104. So I mean, 3.2 out of 104 cap isn't, whatever. That's actually, probably more like in the twos when you actually look at the roster allocation. So all right, what else do we want to talk about?
Well,
When's Geeky going to be signed?
Yeah, I had some definitely a connecting thought to Geeky, but just one last thing to say about the contract for Lohrei. I think pretty much a consensus. It feels like was to do the bridge deal and not go for a 4 or 5 year contract. That's probably one of the reasons why this negotiation gets done quicker, is because 2 years seemed sensible. And for Lohrei, if he has a great 2 years, maybe he gets a bigger deal anyway at the end of this on kind of a prove it contract. If he can clean up the defensive side of his game and be an asset offensively and show those skills, continue to show those skills, he might be able to work himself up to an even bigger payday in 2 years from now. 3.2 is really not that bad. And I did put up a poll on the Skate Pod Twitter, so I did want to go through the early results of that. It's been up for about 40 minutes, or I guess an hour now. And so far, there's 330 votes, and 76% say good deal. 24% say overpay. So that's, a lot of times we get closer to 50-50. I actually thought it would be because in the comment section on different posts that Scott and I had made about it, there was back and forth, like overpay, good deal, overpay, like just straight up back and forth comments. But it would appear Bruins fans, majority of them think that 3.2 for 2 years is a pretty good deal.
Yeah. So, vocal minority on that one. Speaking out against it on Twitter. Yeah, I mean, look, and now obviously, as Brian was starting to allude to, like Morgan Geeky is the next big order of business as it relates to restricted free agents. Yeah, I would say it's fair to say the Bruins would prefer to get this done before July 1st, but they don't have to. If these negotiations drag on, he's still under team control. He's still a restricted free agent. In theory, you might have to worry about an offer sheet, but even with what Edmonton did last year, like I don't expect like a huge wave of offer sheets this year. I think you might see a few. Maybe Geeky's one of them, but sometimes that can even help just get a deal done. Like, sometimes if the offer sheet comes in and it's a number that you're willing to match, like, then you just match it and now your negotiation's over. If it's higher, then you have to debate whether to trade them for whatever the return is in that compensation range. But obviously I think we'd all agree that's probably a little tougher negotiation than Lohrei. Lohrei seemed fairly obvious that like a bridge deal might be best for all sides. Geeky, I think both sides want something longer term, but how much longer term and what the number ends up being and what the trade protection is and like all that stuff makes it a little more complicated. So I'm not surprised that Lohrei got done first. And I wouldn't be surprised if Geeky does take, past July 1st to get done.
And also, Geeky played himself into a different pay level than he was at last time. Whereas Lohrei didn't have quite as an explosive season last year. It wasn't the kind of season where you go, okay, wow, I don't know what this next contract's going to have to be a decent jump. Whereas Geeky is in that conversation. I want to read one of the comments from our underneath our poll. And it is from Lynn in Methuen. She said about the contract, I'm glad. Let's see how new coaches and more realistic minutes and matchups look. The kid makes mistakes, but he will improve. New coach, there's going to be some changes around him. There might be some changes in philosophy on his usage with Marco Sturm now in control. So I guess, he is going to be somebody who could potentially benefit from the change that was made this offseason in terms of the coaching staff.
Yeah, and when
the
Sturm,
realistic minutes was a big part too.
Yeah,
Sorry, Scott, go ahead.
When Sturm was on Felger and Maz after his introductory press conference, he was asked specifically about Lohrei and like made it clear, like, yeah, he has to be better, but like we're gonna work with him. And he also alluded to Lohrei having pretty good results when he played with Charlie McAvoy last year, which is something I've also alluded to a bunch. So that made me think, like, as of now, at least, depending on who they add this offseason, makes me think Sturm has it in his mind that he wants to start the year with Lohrei paired with McAvoy and see how that goes. Because, listen, if that ends up working, that is best case scenario for everyone, right? Like, then the Bruins, I think the Bruins defense pairs, like, obviously you still need someone on the right side, but they really start to fall in line nicely if Lohrei works with McAvoy. If he doesn't, then you're into, okay, do you load up with Hampus Lindholm there, which has never really worked quite as well as you would hope. Like, you would hope Lindholm and McAvoy would have more chemistry the times that they have played together. Do you go Zadorov there, which had very mixed results last year? And like all of a sudden, like things aren't quite falling into line right. So I think that would be the right move, is for Sturm to start them together and see how, basically give Lohrei the chance to either show that he can handle it or play himself off that pairing. And then you kind of have to, move him down, regroup a little and keep working with him and try to figure it out.
So what has Lohrei shown to you, Scott, to this point defensively that he could handle those top assignments with McAvoy? And I know we've seen them in the past together, but I mean like consistently. Are you optimistic that defensively he could handle that?
Well, so I'm going to reframe it a little bit, because I actually envision optimizing Lohrei McAvoy as more of an offensive pairing and getting them out there in the offensive zone, feasting on bottom six lines, and Zadorov, Peak, and Hampus Lindholm, whoever, can get some of the tougher assignments, or at least more of the defensive zone starts. Look, if he's playing with McAvoy, he's gonna get some tough matchups. Like, that's gonna be unavoidable. And have I seen enough from Lohrei to think he can handle that? No. Like, definitely not yet. He's struggled defensively. He's gotten pushed around in his own zone at times. My idea there would be get them out of the defensive zone. Like, how do I get those guys as much time in the offensive zone as possible, and try to optimize them that way? Put them out there with the Pasternak line and be on the attack, and hope that turns into like a 5-man unit that creates offense and spends a lot of time down that end of the ice. That's not to say thatLohrei's not going to have to play defense or doesn't have to get better there. He does. But my idea would be to pick and choose spots quite a bit with that pairing.
Yeah, I think that that's a way to optimize Lohrei's offense, like you're mentioning. I think it's a way to optimize his development because playing alongside Charlie McAvoy as somebody who could teach him in different situations. And Charlie McAvoy is also someone who can cover up some of the defensive mistakes because of who he is. So it's almost one of the safer options.
Rather who he can be. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like there's been times where I've seen McAvoy struggle himself defensively in recent, campaigns at times.
I still view Charlie McAvoy as somebody that is going to be there if there is trouble to
that's
kind
fair.
of read it and know what to do in those situations where maybe there's a bad read by Lohrei or there's a turnover or something and he has to cover for his D partner. I think he's one of the better players at that. So especially considering if it was Lohrei Peak, I don't think Peak does that as well. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Compared to some of the other partners, I think that you can hide some of Lohrai's flaws in that pairing as he learns from McAvoy how to do things better.
So I'm intentionally just poking holes a little bit here just to look at all sides and answer some questions that I have as well. But conceptually, I'm with you guys. Like that is also what I would do is I would put those two together and I would spot them. I think it'll be more challenging on the road than at home because obviously when you're the visiting team, the home team has the final change. So yes, you could still have them in an offensive draw, but maybe in a non-icing situation, the home team can maybe put their better defensive forwards out there. But yes, I think that is something that the Bruins should start with, and see how it goes ultimately. Because I think, like Scott said, that's the best way that their pairs will fall into place. I think you want to split up McAvoy and Lindholm. You want to have that balance, I think, and Zadorov and Peak in a third pair role, I think is great. And then of course we have that big question mark on the right side between McAvoy and Peak that I think we'll either see it. I think we'll see it be addressed somehow. I don't know if it'll be trade or free agency, but I have to imagine that that's not going to be Andrew Peak on that in that slot that spot to start the year, or even somebody else internal. I mean, Henry Yokiharu is somebody people have mentioned, but he's not even signed, and I don't know if they're going to sign him. And even if they do, I see him more as probably a third pair guy anyway. But
yeah he's
it's like
UFA. So
yeah, it's like him and Peak would both ideally be third pairing guys. So that's still like you're stretching to fill a top 4 role if one of those guys is in it. Since I just had it up, the return on the Zegras trade, by the way, Flyers, it's just Zegras going to Philly, and Philly is sending Ryan Poehling, a second round pick, number 45 overall this season, and a 2026 fourth round pick to Anaheim. So no first round pick involved. Poehling is like fourth line center, basically. So I would say I'm okay with that return. Like it's 3 assets, but really the number 45 pick is the most valuable. I think that's about as high as I would go draft capital wise. But the Flyers have so many picks this year that they can afford to do that.
Yeah, well, so
good for them.
I mean, it wasn't a first rounder, which is kind of what our conversation was about. So, and Poehling was a good college player, but yeah, in terms of trying to get assets back and restock a little bit, I think if you had told Ducks fans after Zegras's first, or I guess 3 seasons, because his second and third season were his full seasons, where he put up some really good numbers. I think Ducks fans would be really disappointed to hear that's the return for who at the time was their leading scorer, they're a lot of people's favorite player, and a 9th overall draft pick for a second round guy and a 4th round pick. That is a disappointing return for a player that had the kind of promise he did those first few seasons.
And on the flip side, right now, if you're a Flyers fan, you're waking up and well, not waking up, but you're going about your Monday and you're seeing. So we just got Trevor Zegras, who is capable of putting up 60+ points in the NHL and is still young enough in his mid-20s. And we didn't have to give up one of our first-round picks this year or any future first-round picks. So we still have the ability to draft those first-round picks. We still got 6 overall. We still got the other 2. We got future first-round picks. And we get to, put in somebody who's arguably still entering their prime with a good ceiling in the NHL.
Yeah.
That's great. I immediately hear this deal and I say, okay, so what's the equivalent for the Bruins, right? So the Bruins would have given, they have their second pick this year, I think, is in the 50s, right? So it would be, maybe a second round pick this year, future fourth, and then, I don't know, Johnny Beecher or something like that. Like, I don't really, whether it's Zegras or somebody else, I guess these are the types of deals where you're saying, all right, Don, let's, I'm not saying right now, but if the summer comes and goes and you're not really seeing, much creativity or bold moves from Sweeney, I would be disappointed. To me, giving up a second, a fourth, and a fourth liner isn't that bad for a player like Zegras and what he can be. So, but there we have it.
What if that bottom 6 forward was Husinadinov, though?
Ooh.
There's not. I'm not even picking up the phone. Right? so come on now.
But there's no way to know what they're asking for, Brian, if you don't pick up.
Then I would hang up right away. I'd start rubbing the what are those, the mint wrapper. Oh, I got some static. I'm sorry, guys.
Going through a tunnel.
Yeah. Anyway, no, good deal for the Flyers. Bridget, you're right. I think Anaheim's looking at that return as not optimal big picture, but they're probably looking at it right now as he wasn't really worth much right now. But to your point, yeah, that's fortunately for the Ducks, they have a lot of talent coming up. But
I have a friend who works with the Ducks, and I know that fan base really liked Trevor Zegras. Like, that was their face. Like, he was their personality. That was a fan favorite. At least a few years ago when he was having those 60-point seasons, he was very much. Even of the league at the time, it was all Zegras highlights, him trying the Michigan, and that was what it seemed like he was going to be.
Yeah, his performance at the All-Star game and the skills competition.
Yeah.
I don't know why the Ducks made this move, to be honest. Like, I don't know if this is worth it for them. Unless like he might have been a fan favorite, but unless he just really wasn't liked in the room or something, I don't know. I'm skeptical that a second round pick and a fourth round pick even make the NHL. So,
yeah.
Haling's an okay fourth liner, but to me, this deal from Anaheim's perspective seems like they just wanted him gone, and I don't know what that reason is or reasons, but that's what it seems like to me.
Like, I think they have some similar kind of players, and we're starting to sort of build a forward lineup with, some skilled guys, but like not a lot of grit, not a lot of size. And I think it seems like their goal has been to like start remodeling what that team actually looks like in terms of identity and what the lineup looks like. And they probably figured Zegras just wasn't going to be in their long-term plans. So a year out from restricted free agency, they trade him. And I guess, it seems like a little bit of an underwhelming return, but like, I don't know, you got 3 pieces. I don't think it's like, I don't think it's a bad trade at all. It's probably, I would just say maybe slightly underwhelming.
If it's the best offer they had out there at this point in time, then yeah, you make it, right? If you really want, but that's why I'm saying they wanted him gone. They wanted him out. It's very apparent.
Probably wanted Scott. It's this year's fourth? Is it?
It was a 2026 fourth.
Okay, so it's not even all right.
This year's the second round pick was this year.
I mean, that pick's not going to be an NHL player, most likely, right? And even their 45th overall, like there's a much better chance that he does at some point. But there's a chance that they return ultimately NHL wise could just be Ryan Poehling. That's a good possibility of the return that I'm looking at. So if it's the best return that they had, and they were that adamant on getting rid of him, then fine. But to me, it just seems like
they're now Philly has two guys that love to try the Michigan, because Mishkov is also he's also one of those guys, and
Tortorella's gone, and the Flyers are like, bring them all in.
Yeah,
bring
just
all the
get all
Michigan
these
guys in. That's
Somebody
funny.
will get a Michigan this season. Buy season tickets to the Flyers, you'll see one.
They're gonna start using Michigans to set each other up. Like who was it that Zegras did do that with in Anaheim?
I forget, but I can picture it in my head.
I think it was Strome.
No, it was someone who briefly played at BC. Why am I blanking on the name?
I don't know. I'm blanking on it too. I know the play.
Yeah.
Yep. Great.
Anyway. Well, we spent a lot of time on Trevor Zegras today, the Canadians and the Flyers, but
there was
the number one Bruins podcast about the Montreal Canadiens and Anaheim Ducks.
Well, it just so happened that the news broke as we were talking about it anyway.
Yeah,
so
I mean, we are still kind of in that weird week in between the playoffs and the draft, so we've just witnessed Marchand's rampage, but it's kind of simmering. It's kind of calming down after what was a bender for the history books.
I mean, is he even going to be sober enough on July 1st to sort through free agency options?
I think he needs to go on a full cleanse, just get all the toxins out of his system. I think I've never seen anyone do what he did for 5 straight days and just keep going.
He's just gonna be like, which offer includes the most Dairy Queen, and that's who he's
saying. Can someone get me in my own franchise? That's a little unconventional. I'm not sure we can legally put that in the contract, Brad, but yeah. There was 2 things I wanted to say quickly, and they're not going to take up much time at all. So I did see this morning that this is a PWHL note, but the Boston Fleet lost their head coach, Courtney Kessel. She is going to be the head coach of Princeton, the women's hockey team. So she is out. They have not said anything about a replacement yet. In fact, I don't even think the PWHL Boston, I keep calling them that, the Fleet, I don't think they ever even announced that she was parting ways before Princeton announced that they signed Courtney Kessel as their coach.
I've already started the petition to make Bridget the new Boston Fleet head coach.
Okay, great idea. I mean, they lost Hillary Knight. I mean, it's been an interesting offseason for them, and obviously we're not really a PWHL broadcast, but podcast, but we have some crossover for the fan base. And Courtney Kessel was, in my time talking to her, I thought she was awesome. So unfortunate that she is on her way back to Princeton, where she was previously an assistant head coach. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up quick was something I saw from Mark Diver this morning, who is one of the guys that we talk to in terms of following Providence Bruins and prospects, because he spends a lot of time covering the P Bruins and just other prospects in this area. But he tweeted out that it was a link to a list somebody else had made about 5 targets for the Oilers in the off season to try to trade for, and one of the people on the list was Georgii Merkulov, who's a restricted free agent for the Bruins, Providence Bruins. And Mark posted hoping Merkulov gets an opportunity elsewhere after 3 strong seasons in Providence. And Mark Diver is somebody who's pretty connected. I don't know if he's putting it out there that way, as in like a hint that his time in the Bruins organization may be up, or that there's Merkulov is looking to take that next step and he's just not going to do that here. So there's a little bit to read into with that. And I know we get a lot of questions about Merkulov and Lysell, so I wanted to bring it up because I know we have some listeners that are always interested to hear the latest on those guys.
Yeah, it's definitely worth bringing up, and I'm still kind of baffled that Merkulov didn't get more games in Boston last year. There was obviously plenty of opportunity, and a lot of other AHL guys played a lot of games. And I kind of, at the end of the year, whether they're going to be proven right or wrong, it sort of seemed to me like the Bruins just don't really think Merkulov's an NHLer. If they did, I don't know why he wouldn't have been up for a longer stretch last season. He's done pretty much everything they could want in Providence. Like, as Mark said, he's had 3 really good seasons down there where he's been their leading scorer or close to it. He's improved defensively. He's never going to be a great defensive center. I just don't think that's really in his projection, but like they've known that. I think he has taken some strides there. Look, there's questions about foot speed. There's questions about whether his AHL production would ever translate to the NHL. If they move on, then it tells you like they reached the conclusion that he was, the baseball analogy would be a quadruple A player or, a tweener, whatever you want to call it. And ultimately, yeah, those guys tend to not really stick in one organization because they're going to want to go somewhere that might give them a chance to prove they can be more, whether they ultimately are or not.
Yeah.
Scott, did you mention earlier Bob McKenzie's final rankings, top 10 rankings?
I did not, but I did see those.
Yeah, I'll just mention it real quick. So Bob McKenzie has Matthew Schaefer, Michael Misa, Porter Martone at 3, Anton Frondel at 4, Caleb Denwyer at 5, Jacob Bryan at 6, James Hagens 7, Brady Martin 8, Roger McQueen 9, and Victor Eklund 10. So there's yet again another ranking that doesn't align with some other ones. So here we go. Thank God we have only less than a week away from this being sorted out.
And Chris Peters also had Hagens falling to after 5, into the Bruins range.
He had him falling past the Bruins. He had him going 9 in his mock draft.
Which is,
and worth
noting when the Bruins found out that they were getting 7 overall on lottery night, if I thought that Hagens would still be part of the conversation, I would have said you're crazy, but who knows?
And worth noting on Bob McKenzie's rankings, that is based on like a bunch of scouts that he talks to. Bob McKenzie has made it clear many times over the years he is not evaluating all these kids himself. So that is, he talks to a whole bunch of scouts and then compiles the ranking based on their feedback and on their own rankings. So that is, I tend to think Bob McKenzie's is like about as close to maybe like the consensus among NHL people that you get. Whereas, like you can look at like Elite Prospects consolidated ranking, and that is compiling a bunch of analyst rankings. Bob McKenzie is compiling like from the scouts, like from the people actually giving their feedback to these NHL front offices going into the draft. So yeah, look, I also would not have thought it, but I think Hagens being there at 7 is very much on the table. Like it seems to be a very realistic possibility. And I've said all along, and I maintain, like, if that happens, the Bruins should run to the podium with a smile on their face. I think it's crazy that a player as talented as James Hagens is going to maybe drop to 7.
Yeah, and they'll run to the stage and they'll hand him one of these.
Yeah. Well, also something else about Bob McKenzie's ranking is that it comes out post combine. So if he's talking to scouts since then, it's very, very much up to date and informed. Now, I'm sure he was working on his rankings before and during, but it's worth noting that that's a post combine listing. And what would your reaction be, both of you, if he's available at 7 and the Bruins don't take him? It's literally my nightmare coming true from
Wait,
last
this
episode.
is your nightmare. This was
Yeah.
your nightmare.
Yeah.
Except for that they draft someone that you've never heard of at 7.
I don't think that'll be the case, but
I don't think that will happen. But
passing on Higgins if he's available at 7, they could do. Especially if you fall that far, you might as well fall again.
Well, and
I think it would be a very easy first guess, not second guess. Like I mean, look, there's still guys they could take there. You know, like say Brady Martin's still available, and they do what Chris Peters has. Like they take Martin over Higgins. It's like I don't think you're necessarily going to be disappointed in Brady Martin. Just the way he plays is going to make him an NHLer and a pretty effective one somewhere in your lineup. But I mean, Higgins has legit like number 1 center upside. When the Bruins slipped to 7, we thought, man, they might not be able to draft a center that has that upside. They might get a good center. He might not have legit number 1 upside. James Higgins still has that to me. Like I don't really fully understand why he's dropping. As I said, I think it's kind of crazy, and I think it'd be pretty crazy to pass on him at 7.
But on the flip side is if he does go higher, then maybe someone like O'Brien or Denwye, who's now ranked higher, to go now all of a sudden. Now Jake O'Brien's falling to you from 4 to 7. So this is why this whole draft has just been a crapshoot from the start. We've been talking about it for months now. It's like nobody has any idea, and so for that reason, I'm not too high or too low on anybody that they pick. I think they're all going to be good prospects and good NHL players, and obviously some will rise above the rest. Time will tell. But yeah, if Higgins goes to 7, I mean, you just take him and run. You know.
Well, that's probably so. Bob McKenzie's probably talked to Bruins scouts and has him at 7 because he probably knows that how the Bruins feel about, at least have an idea of what Bruins scouts.
To be clear, it's not a mock draft. It's just a ranking.
Oh, okay. Well, that still to me sounds like, because if you're making rankings off of scouts, to me it should. Don't you think it should be?
Well, maybe
you talked to people, but like at this point, he already knows where people are drafting. So I don't know. Like I feel like I would be, if I had the access to talk to all these scouts, I would be connecting guys with the team.
Yeah, I mean, like they're just two different exercises. Like you talk to scouts to get a sense of how they view these players and would rank them. Like an informed mock draft, you would be talking to front office people, right? Because like ultimately, it's not the scouts making the picks, or at least it shouldn't be. But
it would be
functional front office.
It would still be useful information on how high or how low those organizations are, because they're part of those conversations. Yeah. Those scouts are part of the conversations of decision making for that kind of thing. So anyway.
All right.
By the way,
so
the Anaheim
wrap
Ducks
this up now, but
the Anaheim Ducks player that I was thinking
final
of,
mock draft.
No.
Well, my Wi-Fi is terrible. You guys go. You guys go. You guys talk.
I was just gonna say the Anaheim Ducks player I was thinking of was Sonny Milano, who connected with Zegras.
Oh, yep.
He was at BC so briefly that he dropped out in mid-August before practices even started. So
that's right. That's
Does that
right.
Count?
You guys have me clear right now?
Yeah, you can wrap up.
Good. Okay. So Bridget, when was we're gonna do the mock draft on Wednesday or Friday? Wednesday. Okay. Wednesday we'll be dropping that new uniform release. Friday is the draft, and then again we get the weekend, and then free agency on July 1. There's also development camp is also starts on June 30th, and that's worth mentioning too. Will Zells will be there. They got him in the Charlie Coyle deal. Dylan Turner will be there. Obviously their former first round pick last year, and some others. So
I think Alvin Boy is supposed to be there, right?
Yeah. Also, whoever they draft this year is going to be there.
Yeah, right. So lots to cover over the next little while here. So thank you all very much for listening, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
not in front of a screen, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.